Senator Webber said something that was quite apt tonight. She said the best person to make a decision about how a person lives is the person it affects. And the person abortion affects is the life that it terminates, the life that it kills, and that is the unborn child. That is the person to whom you must refer to when you refer to the person of the greatest effect. We also heard that we must separate our personal views to the issues at hand. I agree totally. The issue at hand is the termination of a human life, the destruction of a human life. That is the issue at hand that must be dealt with. I think that we must first of all grasp the nettle on what we are talking about. We are talking about our ability to refer a person to a position where a human life will be terminated, that is, killed. We say that because we believe the person who is going to be killed has no right. What do we base this premise on? Do we base this premise on the fact that the person is not cognizant of their right? When we are asleep, we are not cognizant of our right. If a bill was to be brought into this House to refer people who are unconscious or asleep to a position where their life would be at threat, I would vote against the bill. A person is not cognizant of their right if they are intoxicated. If we were to bring into this House a bill to refer people who are intoxicated into a position where they may be killed, I would vote against the bill. A person is not cognizant of their right when they are young. And similarly, if I was to be brought into this House a bill that would refer people who are too young and too immature to be cognizant of the right to a position they would be killed, I would vote against the bill. No one has the right to terminate my life now. They didn't have the right a week ago. They didn't have the right the day after I was born. The argument that we must always address is why is it that the day before they were born, they apparently have no rights. The argument becomes one of the crossover of possession to one of nurturing. Because we are in a position of nurture, because we are in a position of responsibility, we don't have the rights of possession. If someone is in our arms or inside our body, it is not a possession of ours, it is a responsibility. If a person is inside a bassinet, they are not the ownership of the bassinet, nor if a child hides in a cupboard are they the possession of a cupboard. It is an argument that this is the crux of the issue which people dance around but are scared to address. I suppose in addressing this argument must we go to the extremities, because the extremities are where we are always taken to. And one of the extremities that is always brought in is the absolute unfortunate and tragic position of rape. In the issue of rape, also, all consciousness must be placed on the actions of a crime. Who committed the crime? Certainly wasn't the victim, which is the lady, the woman, the mother, but is it the child? Why should the child be punished for the actions of someone else? When we believe in that, we believe in inherited guilt. We believe in the transfer of wrongs through generations. And that leads us to a whole philosophical conjecture that people can inherit the injustices that have been brought about by their predecessors. And this is something that is, I find, philosophically intolerable. There are a whole range of other things that were within this bill that I think, in its technicality, need to be brought out into the open. GPs are not required to advertise whether they will or won't refer women for abortion, yet they receive government funding. A psychologist who receives government funding does not advertise whether he or will not refer people to a whole range of treatments. He doesn't have to list whether he believes or doesn't believe in hypnotherapy or cognitive therapy or whatever other form of treatments. It is an absolute right for a person who has a fundamental belief, or a body that has a fundamental belief, that they are referring to a person, and that's how they see it, a person, to a place of imminent danger, to not do so. To not do so. In summary, not all members of the medical profession who receive government funding agree or accept all forms of treatment. In this argument is one that I know that will go on for as long as we're in this Senate, in this chamber. I believe that, as I've said before, that it is the slavery debate of our time. I make great impetus and inference on the fact that we must separate the action from the person. I do not for one moment presuppose the guilt of the person as a continuum, nor do I believe that a person who ever owned a slave was an abhorrent person. The act of slavery was abhorrent. I don't believe the person who has an abortion is intrinsically a bad person. I argue against the action of abortion. And we will continue to argue this because it puts into stark relief our concern on other things, on environment, on animals, on all the other rights that get carted into here and fought with for such fervour, with such sort of forthright compassion. Yet at the same moment, we stand away from the most vulnerable, from the person who can't defend themselves. Yet we believe over time that by proxy we can somehow relieve ourselves from the inherent wrong, which is the destruction, the killing of a human life who is not an imminent nor comparable threat to us, which is the inherent injustice of abortion, the killing of a human being who is not an imminent or comparable threat to us. But we can get absolutely fervent about the destruction of a whale or the destruction of a tree. Are we not in this process deciding that by proxy we will find other avenues to try and set down our beliefs, our fervour, our wish to protect all, but the most intrinsic of what we are, the humanity of what we are? This is an issue which has to be talked about. We must talk about when the right of the individual descends on the person. If we cannot get to that position of when the rights to descend on the individual, then we must accept that they were there from the start, ab ovo. We must ask the question, if I have an intrinsic right to live without harm now, when did that right come about? When was the point in all your lives where a person did not have the right to kill you? And why? Lay down the position, the discussion, the philosophy of at what point the right for you to go unharmed in life was attached to you. That is the debate that must be had here. And it must be had here because at this point we are ignoring the facts. We are ignoring the intrinsic issue of what this is about. And by so doing, we only fool ourselves, and we will be judged by history to do that. These debates will, I believe, come a time where the argument will be so obvious that the conjecture will only lie as to how we could not have realised it right now. This is the debate that separates us from the animals.